People who get it, get it.
Welcome to the Geek Speak Show. This is no podcast. The Geek Speak Show is a geek culture showcast.
God bless the geek.
This is the show where we talk about and to the movers and shakers in geek culture.
This is now the Geek Speak Show. Now heard exclusively on PKNRadio.com. Now, here's your host, Henry.
Hi, it's Henry. How you doing, everybody? Welcome to the Geek Speak Show, brand new episode of this week. So I'm here. Hey, it's Henry. Violet's not going to be here today. She's on a little break, but it actually gives me a chance to explain, but introduce something that's coming to the Geek Speak Show this summer. Coming this summer. And that is, we're going to have a revolving door installed here on the show. Not for all of you, but for Geek Girl co-hosts. As you know, we've been looking for one for a while. We found Violet, and happy to have her on board, and she's fun. It's fun having her here. But we actually have met a few more in our travels, in our event coverage, and when they heard about the show, they listened to the show, they love it, they want to come on, so they will come on. So starting next week, I'm going to introduce you to one of the new Geek Girl co-hosts, and then we'll have them maybe once a week, once every other week. Violet will be here also. But they are experts, the Geek Girl co-hosts that are coming. They are all experts in their own right in different fields. Some are cosplayers. Some actually work in the movie industry. Some on TVs. Some actually work in comics, believe it or not. Others are just like you and I, plain old fans, geeks. Although, honestly, there's nothing plain about them. And you'll see as you meet them all. And you'll also meet them at the events that we do. Free Comic Book Days coming up. Movie premieres are coming up. Some conventions are coming up. A big one in San Diego is coming. So you'll see them out there. You'll get to go out there and say, hey, hi, I heard you on the Geek Speak Show. So that'll be coming next week, introducing a revolving door of brand new Geek Girl co-hosts. So as for this show, it's a few things that actually I like, and all of you, I'm sure, like also. Specifically for me, I like radio. That's why I do what I do. So that'll be on the show this week. Also, comic books and 1950s sci-fi. I'm going to pull in producer Damon because he's going to have fun with this interview as well. So let me go grab him. In the meantime, you all listen to the book club, and we'll go GaGa over Radio GaGa next.
It's time for the Geek Speak Show Book Club. Our books
Or graphic novels.
tell us what your favorites are.
Books at thegeekspeakshow.com.
All right, so my pick for the book this week is The Spook's Bestiary, The Guide to Creatures of the Dark by Joseph Delaney. Now, if y'all remember, last year I started picking a lot of the books from the Last Apprentice series by Joseph Delaney. There's 8 books, read all 8 of them. Highly recommend you read that one. Also because the movie's coming pretty soon. It's called The Seventh Son. It's going to star Jeff Bridges and Ben Barnes as the spook, John Gregory, and Tom Ward, his apprentice, the last apprentice. But that's coming early next year. But the book that I picked is not a sequel to it. It's actually a companion book to the Last Apprentice series. Again, it's called The Spook's Bestiary, The Guide to Creatures of the Dark by Joseph Delaney. I recommend that you do read all 8 books before you pick up the Bestiary because it does mention some events that happen in the book, so you can kind of consider them spoilers, although they are notes on the side. The whole book is written by Joseph Delaney, but it's written as if you're reading the handwriting and the writings of the spook, John Gregory. And there's some notes from his apprentices, including Tom Ward. You know, like I said, if you haven't read the books, I would avoid the side notes because they contain spoilers. But if you just read it as it is, as a bestiary, it's a pretty good read, especially those of you who like things from the dark, creatures of the dark. It tells you about witches, about boggarts, about ghosts, about dragons, about the fiend, about all kinds of them, their powers, their weaknesses, if any. So you can read it just as that. But again, if you haven't read the Last Apprentice book series, I recommend you read those first, then pick this one up. Then you'll enjoy it that much more. So again, it's called The Spook's Bestiary, The Guide to Creatures of the Dark by Joseph Delaney. Be on the lookout for a couple of things. One, the new book in the Last Apprentice series. It will be called I Am Grimalkin. May change its title when it comes here to the US, but it's going to be released in the UK first. We'll probably have Joseph Delaney on, so I'm trying to get a review copy of it so I can feature it on the book club, and we'll have Joseph Delaney. And also, like I mentioned, the movie's coming out. It's going to be called The Seventh Son, based on the Last Apprentice series, starring the dude, Tron, Jeff Bridges as the Spook, as John Gregory, and Ben Barnes, you last saw him as Prince Caspian in the Narnia movie as Tom Ward. So be on the lookout for that. That will be coming soon. But for now, my pick is The Spook's Bestiary, The Guide to the Creatures of the Dark by Joseph Delaney. Go up in the book club section. There's a link to it. You can find out more about it. And don't forget, send us your suggestions too.
That's the Geek Speak Show Book Club. Tell us what your favorite books or graphic novels are. Books at thegeekspeakshow.com.
This is the reason you go online. Now back to the Geek Speak Show on pknradio.com.
All we hear is Radio GaGa, Radio Cuckoo, Radio GaGa. Radio, someone still loves you.
Okay, so let's go GaGa, not Lady Gaga. Had to go and grab producer Damon. Jump in for this one. You're going to enjoy this one. So you're a radio guy. I'm a radio guy. That's why we're here, do what we do.
That's right.
So is Chad Lambert. Chad Lambert has, it's coming up in July for Dark Horse Comics Presents. That's the one where our friend Al Gordon, he's got his Tarzan story in there right now. This one, when I got sent the press release by Dark Horse, I said, this is right up our alley. Mm-hmm. Radio GaGa. And what it is, well, I'm not going to explain it to you. I'm going to have Chad Lambert on now. Chad, welcome to the Geek Speak Show.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
Oh,
our
you're very
pleasure.
welcome.
So go ahead and tell everybody what Radio GaGa is all about.
Well, there's a dark secret in radio that people who've been in radio know this. No matter what station you're on, no matter what format, no matter where it is or what time of day, you spend about 6 minutes an hour on the air, and you spend the other 54 minutes taking calls from absolutely psychotic, crazy people.
Yes.
And that's kind of where this story stems from. Because, 99% of the people that listen to radio are completely normal, well-adjusted adults. It's that other 1% that just feel the need to call over and over and over and mess with the DJs.
Let me jump in there for a second. Actually, the ones that are normal never call in. It's always the psychos that end up calling in.
Yeah, so you get kind of jaded as to who your audience is by talking to this 1% lunatic fringe of people.
Yeah, and so you decide you have a few stories of your own because you actually were in radio. How long ago was it that you were in radio?
I started in 1994 and was in it until about 2002.
Yeah, and during that time, you actually have a collection of crazy listener stories.
Oh, tons of them. And, at the time, you take it for what it is. It's just part of the job. But it's not until, you're out of the business for 10 years that you can get some perspective on it. And you're like, yeah, they were nuts. And it's okay to say they were nuts because they were nuts.
Yeah. And so after all this time, what made you finally want to sit down and say, you know what, I got to tell these stories?
I never had any desire to do it. Like I said, I got out of radio in 2002, and within a few months of that, I started writing comics. So the two never overlapped in my life. So it just never struck me as something that I would want to do. But, like I said, it wasn't until you have about 10 years of perspective that you can look back on this industry that, in the same second you can passionately love and despicably hate, that you can get a perspective to write about it. And I've been doing some biography comics of late. So I was kind of in the mindset to do it. And, I was always a big fan of American Splendor and how Harvey Pekar was able to lay out his life so matter-of-factly. And I thought, if I could apply that to some of these really bizarre radio stories, I might have something here.
So comics was something that you always wanted to write, pretty much.
Oh, right? No question. Yeah, I've wanted to write comics since I was able to read them. They just had that effect on me. There's just that I want to participate in this thing I get so much joy from.
Now, did you go through the phase that I did when I was in radio? I don't just play a geek on the radio or now online here, but I actually grew up as one. But when I was playing the DJ thing, that I had to be the cool DJ, and I had to kind of hide my my Spider-Man T-shirts and all that stuff because it's not very cool when you're playing the top 40 or the rock music and you have Spider-Man T-shirts and all that stuff. Did you have to go through all that?
Yes and no. We were on kind of a cool station. We were on an alternative rock station in Dayton. So, there was kind of that fringe element in there. We would do movie ticket promotions to, the X-Files and and the comic book stuff, but it wasn't really a big deal for me. But, my personality on air was a little on the fringe, too, so I wasn't playing it too cool.
Yeah, so he is Chad Lambert. He's got Radio GaGa coming in July. Chad is a 5-time Howard E. Day Memorial Award finalist, 2-time Champion City Award nominee. He did one book that we were talking before we started the interview that I don't know why I never heard of this or read it. It's Return to Point Pleasant, all about Mothman. And if you guys don't know what that is, then look it up somewhere. That is I talk about it here on the show all the time. I love all paranormal, scary stuff, and you all know how we do October here. What got you interested in the Mothman and all that?
I actually grew up in Jackson, Ohio, which was like 30 miles north of Point Pleasant, West Virginia. So to me as a kid, the boogeyman was the Mothman. That was just something that was ingrained in the folklore. But it wasn't until I started writing comics and had, a couple of books under my belt that, I really started thinking about Mothman being such a great visual story and how nobody had really done it before. So I, did my research and I interviewed some eyewitnesses and, dotted my I's and crossed my T's and put together this book.
Coming up, what was one character that you wanted to be like, or what was one character that you say that you could describe yourself as?
Something between Dr. Johnny Fever and Venus Flytrap. Now, obviously, I'm going to talk about KRP because I'm a guy who wound up in Cincinnati radio because of that show. That's how stupid I was. So, like, when I was a kid, I watched that show and I'm like, that's what I want to do when I grow up. So, like, in 1994, as a complete idiot, moved to Cincinnati to break into Cincinnati radio.
Did you sing the theme while you were packing?
Oh, up and down the dial. Yeah, man. I mean, I was completely hooked, and it was amazing to me how true that show was once you got in.
What was Cincinnati radio like for you?
It was exactly like that show. There were, it was, now, to be fair, when I was in Cincinnati radio, I was on the AM side, so that was a little different. But we were clustered with, the Heritage Rock station and the alternative station, and I mean, it was WKRP in Cincinnati in this building. I mean, granted, there were 8 stations in there, but it was KRP. I mean, you saw the burned out DJ, you saw the smarmy sales guy in the bad suit.
Wow.
You saw the befuddled newsman that had Band-Aids on his head. I mean, it was WKRP. And little did I know that, like, it was actually going to be more bizarre and more funny than the show could capture.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I've always liked the KRP, because it is, like you said, it is exactly what a radio station is like. There's been a lot of movies, and the only one, actually, I should take that back. The only one that comes close to even touching what it's really like is talk radio, the movie Talk Radio. That one also is pretty close to what talk radio is actually like. But KRP, that's one of the reasons why I've always liked that one. Not the new version that they had later. That one was
that sucked.
Yeah. So again, we're talking to Chad. He's going to turn his radio adventures or misadventures, however you want to see him, into a comic book. Radio GaGa. It's coming in July from Dark Horse. Can you give us, without too many spoilers, give us a little bit of what we can expect? Because some people may be thinking, what does that mean, radio stories? You talk about, how you put the CD in and push play. That's not what it means. Tell them a little bit what those are.
Well, it's a strange business, and I didn't realize when I was in it how strange it was until I got out and kind of looked back, and I'm like, wow, there's a lot of really weird things that go on at a radio station, but I didn't think anybody cared. These weren't particularly interesting stories to me at the time. But, whenever I would tell a story or somebody would prompt me to tell a story at my day job or whatever, all of a sudden the room would kind of quiet down. And then, people would start asking questions and wanting to know things. So I thought, maybe this might be worth a page or two of comic book. And, I have like this one story, and it's the story that became Radio GaGa. That's like my story that I've never told before, that I've never had any urge to put on paper. So that's what the first chapter in Dark Horse Presents number 14 is going to be. It's called Radio GaGa. It's a short 5-page story, but it's what happens when a crazy radio listener misunderstands something you say as you're talking up, say, a Sheryl Crow record, and mistakes it for wanting to assassinate the president of the United States of America and broadcasting it on an FM rock station. And how that sort of unfolds from that point. So it's a very, very bizarre story. And, obviously I didn't threaten the president. I was talking about Sheryl Crow's new record, and things just sort of went downhill from there rather quickly.
Yeah, like I was saying before we started, though, so I personally might have never experienced that, but I have worked with other radio personalities who have, and let me get producer Damon in here for this one. We all have,
and then I think
our crazy caller stories,
and I think the both of us have like a lot of stories as far as what we personally have gone through as well. So it's it's definitely it's trippy. The listeners can be a little trippy at times,
Yeah, go ahead, Chad.
It's an occupational hazard, really. I mean, people don't realize that is such a big part of the job is, interacting with people that are calling the station. That's what you do most of the time you're in there. Yeah. And you're expected to do it. And you're expected to, pick those calls up by the third or fourth ring and be pleasant when, somebody calls and requests Puff Daddy on a alternative rock station, and you politely tell them that we don't play Puff Daddy, and then they call back 15 seconds later, and they do that for 5 straight hours. You got to understand that it takes a lot to sit in there and take that abuse that these callers are just pounding you with every day you're on the air. And this is kind of the story that happened to me is it's kind of a occupational hazard.
Yeah. No, again, this is your stories, your thing here. Have you, especially now with everything going online and you start Facebooks and all that stuff, have you ever thought about making a Facebook or just a blog where you could take stories from either current or past radio personalities and maybe add some of those later on the radio GaGa?
Possibly. I really didn't give this a lot of thought. Like I said, it was just, I had never written about it, and I was putting together this story for a self-published collection I was going to put out of short stories. And this was going to be one of my new pieces. I thought this would be a great way to lead the book. It's something I've never done, something I've never written. And, I put it down and I'm like, it felt good. It felt different than the other stuff I've done. So I, sent it over to a friend of mine who's also in the business. And I said, is this any good? This is about a guy who, wants to be on the air, and he's out there and he's struggling, and he's pressing the flesh, and he's doing what he's supposed to be doing, and he winds up accidentally getting arrested by the Secret Service. And he emails me back about an hour later, and he's like, read what you just wrote me. He's like, that right there is the greatest pitch I've ever heard. He's like, this is a great story. You need to go show this to people. So, I mean, I was as surprised as anybody. And, having it accepted in Dark Horse Presents, which is one of my all-time favorite comics, I'm just beside myself. Like, none of this seems real. Yeah. So to answer your question, I really don't know where this is going. I mean, I had an intention to write 5 pages and write my quote unquote story. But once I wrote that story, again, with 10 years perspective and sort of that, self-deprecating sense of humor, as I write these things, I'm like, well, maybe these were interesting stories. Maybe other people, maybe this will have people, want to contact me and tell me their stories. That would be really cool.
Yeah, like I said, if you do that and you take submissions, you'll have enough for 200 books. Like I said, everybody has their own stories, radio horror stories, if you want to call them that. Now, are there any stories, and you may want to share them or not, that you would consider too crazy to put into a comic book like Radio GaGa?
None. This is no holds barred. Like, if I'm going to start with the one I'm starting with, clearly I have no threshold. No, it can't get crazy enough. But mostly I think the theme of the stories and the material I'm writing is I really didn't know what I was doing. So it's kind of that underdog. I came to Cincinnati with very little radio experience. I mean, I had been on a 500 watt AM station my senior year of college. I had nothing, but I talked a big talk, and I came to town, and I had some breaks that I probably didn't deserve. So there was a lot of really uncomfortable growing pains. And I think writing about those growing pains as opposed to, oh, here's a crazy story about how someone tried to punch me for no reason. Like, to me, it's more interesting to talk about how I struggled to become a radio personality and how I never really felt I did. I think is something that people can relate to.
And now, honestly, have you been cured, or is the bug still there to be on the radio?
That is a great question. It's like I really don't think about it very much, but I'll hear a song or something that we used to play on the alternative rock station, and I'll get this. I'll get this. Yeah, I'll talk. I'll talk. I'll go to the post. I'll try it, but I'll just get this nostalgic, warm feeling for about 30 seconds, and then I get angry. So it's that I love it and I absolutely hate it. So I don't know. It never goes away though. I can tell you that.
Yes, producer Damon,
Yeah, I
you
would
agree
with that.
Yeah, although what is going away is the radio itself, because everything honestly is going online now. This is the reason why I brought this here to online, because unfortunately, radio and as they call it, traditional media is becoming very not dying, but is just
It's almost becoming the thing of the past.
irrelevant.
Yeah, there you
Because
go.
everybody goes to news, to Twitter, to Facebook, to all that stuff. Because it's just instantaneous, where you don't have to, the old saying, news at 11. You don't have to wait for that because it's right there for you online now.
Yeah, and I'll be the first to admit it's dead. Like
Yeah.
I really, and I wish it wasn't.
Yeah.
Because I got into it right as the conglomerates were buying everything. So I kind of got the tail end of like when it was really cool to like the big corporations bought it, and then you're like, oh, okay, so now it's not quite as cool, to where when I got out of it, it was like, I cannot wait to get out of here. So I had my fill of it, but I look at it and I'm like, if I were to get back in radio, where on earth would I go?
Yeah.
I mean, I would have to be one of these traveling gypsies that go all over the United States just to get an FM job, because there just aren't any.
Yeah, but I guess it is that. And TV, same thing, because everybody watches on DVR, or they TiVo it, or just watch it online somewhere on Hulu or things like that. So nobody really watches shows live except on very rare occasions.
Yeah, and if I ever got back into it, it wouldn't be on the commercial side. I would do like an NPR or something like that, just because I've seen the other side, and I want really no part of that if I can help it.
Yeah, so Chad Lambert, writer, Radio GaGa. Radio GaGa is coming July 18th. Dark Horse presents number 14. Start reserving them now, and actually it's going to come out, if you guys look on your calendar, it's going to come out on the same weekend. Or same week, I should say, that a little movie from Christopher Nolan comes out. So you have Radio GaGa first, then go watch that little movie from Christopher Nolan.
Wow, way to set that up. Inevitably, you're going to be disappointed by both.
Well, honestly, I have not disappointed, but I just don't like. And you can understand this because you're still a sound guy somewhere in there.
Sure.
Did you see the tease, the IMAX tease that he released?
Yeah, where you couldn't understand a word Bane was saying.
See, to me, not only that, but the whole thing was just too damn loud. The whole mix was too loud.
Yeah, well, I thought The Dark Knight was too loud. I've only seen it one time. I saw it in an IMAX theater with all the the Dolby this and that or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, geez, dial it down a notch. I mean, I thought maybe I was getting old, but yeah, it's too much. It's too much. And I couldn't understand a word Bane said. I saw the preview, and then I went home and looked at it online a few days later, and I'm like, well, I can't hear it on here either. It's just that muddy.
Yeah,
it was like he was talking to the Swedish chef or something.
Yeah, and I felt that through the whole thing. I couldn't understand what any of the other actors were saying either. So all I saw was people jumping off planes, and it's like, okay, I don't know what it was about, but okay.
Yeah, I've resigned from the fact that I'm never going to understand a word Christian Bale is saying as Batman. But when you can't understand the villains either, you're like, why am I here? Why am I watching this? I'll just wait for the DVD and watch the closed caption like every other middle-aged person does.
Okay, so Chad Lambert again, Dark Horse presents number 14, July 18th. It'll be there, Radio GaGa. There's a little tease on our Facebook page, a little trailer for there, so you guys can take a look at that. And Chad, you're welcome back when it comes out, and you're welcome back anytime, really, to just geek out or just talk about comics.
Oh, cool. I'd be happy to anytime.
Right, Chad, thanks a lot. We'll talk to you later.
All right, man.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, for our next attraction.
Comics Commentary with David Lee on the Geek Speak Show.
Hey, welcome back to yet another edition of Comics Commentary with me. So, last week, here at the Geek Speak Show, we did a full podcast dedicated to cosplay. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make that event because of a strange little thing called work. Damn it. But not to be left out of the festivities, I'm going to go ahead and talk about that for a little while this time. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a sub-review of a crazy little web series I like to call The Guild. We'll start with The Guild first. So, if you're listening to the Geek Speak show, there's no doubt you haven't heard about the Guild. And if you haven't heard of the Guild, I'd like to ask you about what fungus is best to eat, having lived in a cave for X amount of years. So the Guild is basically about a very crazy little neurotic woman named Sid who goes by the handle Codex, and she's basically the focal point of the whole story. The whole thing runs around Sid, Codex, Blades, Vork, Tink, Clara, and Zabu. So I'm not really going to talk about the prior seasons 1 through 4. I'm going to talk about season 5 since it actually kind of relates into the cosplay thing. Season 5 was released on Netflix here just a little bit ago and got my chance to watch it, and I found it absolutely hysterical. There was a lot of funny points within the series and a lot of high-end celebrity cameos. We got to see guests like Grant Imahara from Mythbusters, Kevin Sorbo from Hercules. Stan Lee himself made an appearance, which was absolutely hysterical. What the funniest thing about it, in my opinion, was Zabu's what did he call it? Ah, yes, the Save a Seat Network. In that Save a Seat Network, he had 2 bodyguards dressed up as Master Chief, one red, one blue, which I had to admit was a hilarious little reference and a little nod to Red versus Blue. Well, those 2 were just pretty much his bodyguards, and they were rather hilarious in their own right. What we found out later...
Spoiler alert!
Spoiler alert! Spoiler! Oh God, run! Is that the 2 Master Chiefs were actually cosplayed by women. Hilarious little pull-off there. I actually didn't see it coming. It was great. They also addressed the topic of steampunk cosplay in the whole con community, and they also dressed up as their own characters here and there. You also had Tink finding out that she was working on a fashion degree more than anything, and she had costumes going for every single hour almost. Kind of reminded me of the good old cosplay thing that I do, along with the episode you heard last week. So as you may or may not know, I'm an avid cosplayer. I'm still in the beginning stages, but I'm actually kind of known for Headmaster Summers at Dragon Con. Basically, it's from X2 or the Astonishing X-Men lineup. And I just have a nice Oxford shirt, pair of slacks, and my X-Men 2 visor. Often gets a lot of weird looks. I love it. Now, before I go forward, let me tell you, cosplay is almost not even a hobby anymore. For some, it can be considered a way of life. I've seen people and have very close friends with some people who actually put hundreds and hundreds of hours into their cosplay suits, tweaking it, making it the best they can be. And to me, that's amazing. I love it. When I go to these cons dressed up as my characters, say Cyclops, Superboy, this upcoming year I'm going dressed up as the full-on movieverse Cyclops with the leather suit, Red Hood, and Punisher. When I go to these cons dressed up as my characters, I just can't help but stop and stare at points at these people in these costumes. And it brings a whole level of respect to the game. The more you see these people wearing these costumes and how much work they've put into it. I mean, there was a cosplayer who actually got hired on by BioWare. She'd done a lot of Mass Effect 2 and 3 costumes, and her grunt costume was so intricate and so well done, BioWare hired her. You can't go wrong there. But there are some bad sides to cosplay, and I'd like to tell all of you, don't sweat them. If you guys are cosplaying, ignore the haters. Keep doing what you're doing. You're gonna have haters no matter what. I get people telling me that, oh, your cosplay costume for Cyclops sucks because you're just in street clothes with a visor. To which I tell them, okay, why don't you go get me the comic issue where you can actually see Headmaster Summers? Or how about you go watch X-Men 2 where you can see it? Shuts them up every time. Don't let the haters fool you. You enjoy what you're doing. cosplayers out there. You have fun, you stick with it. Just because we're different than what society normally likes to think, because, oh my God, costumes should only be done for Halloween. Who knows? No. We can dress up whenever the hell we feel like it. That's what we like to do. So, until next time, this has been Comics Commentary with me. Shoot me a line. David Lee at thegeekspeakshow.com, or even locate me on Facebook at the Geek Speak Show Facebook page. Drop me a line. Tell me if I'm nuts, if you like what I'm hearing, or if you have a topic suggestion of your own. I'm always open to hear it. Don't make me get desperate like Micro from Dirty Jobs. So until next time, next topic, maybe you. We'll see you in 7, guys.
Hi, I'm Chris Hardwick from Things, and you're listening to the Geek Speak Show.
Now back to the Geek Speak Show. Welcome back to the Geek Speak Show. So that was a fun interview, Radio GaGa, coming out July 18th, same week that a little movie from Christopher Nolan comes out. You might know what that is. So, like I said when we started the show, we're going to talk about many things that I like. One of them, radio, of course. Hello, that's why I'm doing this. The other, comics and 1950s sci-fi and just sci-fi in general. And here they are. We met him at WonderCon. You guys have seen him on the YouTube page, the videos that we had there. Aliens Took My Girl. No, not mine. That's the name of the not comic book. It's a motion comic. And on here to talk about it are the creators, directors, and the brains behind Aliens Took My Girl. Let's start, ladies first, I guess. Christina Douk, Christopher. I can call you Chris. We've known each other for what? Half a month. And Jesus Villareal. So who wants to take it first? Tell us about Aliens Took My Girl.
Well, I mean, I'm going to talk about how I came up with the idea of Aliens Took My Girl. There's, back in the day, I used to play a game called Manic Mansion. I remember it so lively. It was like, it made such a great impact in my life. And it was basically a classic sci-fi / horror comedy story. And I was inspired since then. And then it wasn't until I was in college that I started writing a story about I wanted to write a classic sci-fi, that hit all the marks of pop culture and, classic America. And I was like, why not write a story about aliens took my girl? And I was like, I think that sounds kind of fun. And I started working around it, and it changed throughout the years so much. But then finally we came up with the idea of making a classic 1950s sci-fi story about...
Wait, actually, let me jump on that, actually. Was the idea to do the motion comic right from the beginning? Did you want to do an actual comic or something else?
No, I was writing the story first just to, write the story for the story's sake. And I didn't know what it was going to turn out to be. I mean, I was an illustrator back then in my early years of college, back in the early 2000s. So it was going to be somewhere along the lines of illustrated media. I just hadn't figured out if it was going to be a comic or an animation, or in this case, a motion comic. It wasn't until later on where we had the chance to do it that I decided to make it a motion comic.
When did you actually put? Well, I guess it's not pen on paper. When did you actually start putting the thing together?
2002, 2003. Yeah, I started writing it, and it has changed so much. Though it used to take place back in 1980s. And it was about a whole bunch of high school kids running around Halloween. So that's why, like, the adults didn't believe that there were aliens around. So now the kids had to figure everything out, which sounds a lot like a very different story than what we end up writing.
Yeah.
The revision came in early 2009, where I was like, okay, I should probably play around with the characters a little more, because I was older now. I was over 25, so... I was a little detached from the characters, so I started. I didn't want to. I didn't want this to happen. 26 now. Yeah, I'm only 27 now. No, I'm actually turning 30 this month. But then I didn't want to be detached from the characters, and if I was being detached from the characters, being the writer, I could only imagine that if I were to have an audience, the audience would be detached as well. So I decided to rewrite some of the characters, give them different age ranges, and there's a kid, there's an adult, there's a teen, and there's like an older adult, like, just kind of like a more mature man. So it wasn't until early last year, that I sat down and started rewriting, and finally came up with the first draft of Aliens Took My Girl. Then I rechanged everything. Like, you know, it was taking place in 1950s, and there's like a deeper story where like there's these two characters end up with, you know, together. And then we started collaborating with a team, and then Chris jumped in with the story and spiced it up pretty well, and we turned the main story into 3 different issues, and that's how we came to the first issue of Aliens Took My Girl.
That's Jesus. Chris, it would be Chris Reiser, is it pronounced?
Reiser.
Reiser.
Yeah.
Where did you come in and pick it up from there?
I came in when we were doing pre-production, and I started out doing character designs for the character of Leon and a couple other characters that are down the line in the main story. But I mean, I'm a story artist at heart, and I wanted to storyboard for the comic, the actual comic. So we weren't in that stage in pre-production yet, because a lot of concept art and character designs and assets needed to be developed so that we have something tangible to work off of and then bring in the story. So we at first made a trailer, and I kind of proved myself through story and animating, compositing, writing music for it, trying to get like a theme and an overall feeling for this story and look for it. And I started storyboarding, and then we went on to the issue after the trailer. I storyboarded that entire thing, and then that's how I kind of jumped on to be director.
When Jesus first brought it to you, when you first saw it, what did you think? Specifically, what did you think was missing from it? Keep in mind, he's standing right next to you.
It's okay. I won't take any offense.
Means he won't punch you.
Yeah.
I guess looking at the overall story, there was, I mean, Jesus originally wrote the story as a longer piece, and we had to separate it into 3. So there was a lot of plot holes that we had to figure out, so that people didn't get lost and had to wait until the second issue came out, and then we would lose our audience right then and there from the first issue. So there was just some plot holes, but we figured those out, and I kind of came in with some dialogue, and then initial dialogue, and then Jesus and I kind of collaborated on making it more final and more of a collaboration of being co-writers together. And it's
The rest will tell me when you're not in the studio with us.
Yeah, exactly. I can't say anymore.
So actually, while Chris was saying that, you guys kind of, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys kind of understand, I'll put it that way, George Lucas when he says, well, it wasn't really the movie that I wanted to put out to begin with, talking about Star Wars, the special editions, because he says he found a lot of plot holes, which they were actually just technical. But you guys actually found, or you, Chris, more specifically, found story plot holes more than technical stuff, right?
Yeah, more story plot holes, because there's a lot of Easter eggs still in what we produced with the new plot hole areas that have been filled, but there was a lot of Easter eggs that couldn't be explained in the first issue, and they had to wait until later. But we just couldn't have that to give the audience a pow in the beginning, you know.
Yeah, and I've seen actually the Aliens Took My Girl. I've seen the first episode. You guys can too. Go to our link section. It's up on there. It's on our Facebook. It's just everywhere. Just go to our link section. It's all there for you. There are actually not just Easter eggs. There's also a lot of references to other sci-fi movies. One very big one right in the beginning. These aren't the droids you're looking for. You guys won't miss that one. That's in there.
You can't skip that one.
Yeah, when Chris came in and started changing all these things, did that change the overall story, the original story that you had, or did it pretty much stay the same from what you originally came up with?
No, not at all. It was more of a more concise rewrite more than anything, where everything made more sense, and we moved. Chris helped me a lot, shifting stuff around in order for it to make more sense. As he was talking, I wrote it as a 3-act piece. It was supposed to be. I wrote it as a screenplay for a movie, and then that screenplay turned into a comic book of about 50 pages, and then we broke those down into 3 different issues.
Graphic
So we had
novel,
to-
actually.
Yeah, into a graphic novel. But then we had to break it into 3 different issues, and we had to expand each issue to comply the 22 pages. So we did write it in a way, or when I started writing it, I did write it as a comic book, with the comic book format, with like page, panel, and then dialogue, like the whole format to write a comic book. But with the screenplay in mind. So that's why issue 1 is just the act 1 of the overall main story, which consists of the 3 issues, the first 3 issues. So when I showed it to Chris, kind of like, I was like, we're having trouble with the first issue. We were required to do a shorter version of the story and break the full story into different issues. So act 1 wasn't really too exciting, didn't have too much going on. So when I approached Chris, I was like, hey man, like, I really need your help here in order for me to make sense of this thing as a whole. It just seems too flat in the middle. So that's when he stepped in, and we made it a lot about the character. Like he got it right off the bat that it was an origin story, so it had to be about the characters. So he focused a lot on developing the characters through conversations and interactions between them. So and for that I thank him so much. And I mean, that's why he's co-director, because he just like got it right then and there.
Jesus Villareal and Chris Reiser, they are the writers, directors. Aliens Took My Girl, alienstookmygirl.com. Go on the link section, it's all up on there. As writers, how hard is it to not give away too much in the first episode, but at the same time put in enough to grab people to want to come back for the next episode?
It was, it has a certain, you require a certain skill level in order to place the Easter eggs as they should, kind of like what we call it, plants and payoffs. So to just plant something and leave it there with an open ending, just kind of like, would that fall flat in the story? Would that look like bad writing, or would that look like it's intentional in order to give a cliffhanger ending at towards
for
the
this
end of the
audience,
issue?
what you
But-
got to say is making sure it doesn't look like Lost season 3.
Exactly. So that's where a lot of collaboration came into play. Not just for Chris and I, but for the crew itself. Like, I mean, we would talk to Christina, we would talk to our animation supervisor Keaton, and we would actually have kind of like a round table where we would discuss the story and like what is needed, what's missing, what we should do, how we should fix these things that aren't looking well. So in that sense, it was just more of a collaborative effort.
Speaking of Christina, go ahead and jump in here. Christina Douk.
Hello.
Let's talk. When did you come into all this?
Well, Jesus kind of is really good at convincing people, and he bribed me with
food.
I'm a no. So I am actually a 3D modeler, and he bribed me with modeling one of the characters, which was the robot that flies into space in the beginning. But in the end, I didn't get that model. Instead, I got bribed with another model after, which was the hot rod. So I actually ended up building that. And from there, like, I've come and meet with like a bunch of really, really inspiring people, and they're really like dedicated, they're good workers and very talented. So from there, I kind of agreed to stay on the team, and I became the technical director. So I actually took charge of how the 3D objects would look in the scenes and trying to make it cohesive with the 2D objects.
So this is the first project you worked on as a 3D artist, or have you done some other things before?
Well, I've done a couple of other things from before, but never it's never publicized as much.
Were they like this, sci-fi or comic, or different?
Usually cartoony.
Cartoony. Yeah. And what did you think when you first saw the story and everything that Aliens Took My Girl consists of?
Well, I love robots and aliens, and
who doesn't?
I mean, what else can you say? It's pretty awesome. The story really sold me in the beginning because I love like cheesy cartoons, and it brought forth like kind of like the Saturday morning cartoon type thing to me, like, oh, what's gonna happen next? And I liked the whole story, and it's a lot to look forward to for the next issue and stuff.
Yeah, so any of you guys can take this one. What can we look forward to in the upcoming issues without spoiling too much?
Go ahead, Chris.
Okay. Basically, more aliens, more girl, and more being taken of.
So there you go. Aliens Took My Girl. AliensTookMyGirl.com is the website. You can go there directly. Or just go to our link section. It's all up on there. So besides interviews like this, what else are you guys doing to get the word out about Aliens Took My Girl?
Well, we have a Facebook page and a Twitter account, and the Facebook page is just Facebook/AliensTook, and then the Twitter page is Twitter/ATMG_crew. And you can check updates there. We usually post constantly if we have any new publicity or new things we're putting out or stuff like that.
Now, WonderCon, you guys were taking emails for the free comic, and I guess it's out now, the first episode?
Yeah, it is in our webpage. We made a WonderCon exclusive for a limited amount of time where they require a password. They still require a password. The password is WonderCon. Oh, there you go. I just aired it.
Oh man.
No, it was intentional. Just but I guess in like a couple more weeks or a week, it'll be open, just completely open in our webpage, and people can just log into the webpage and see the motion comic and enjoy it. And that's.
We want you to see it.
From WonderCon, what was the response like from the people there and people that whose emails you got?
We had about 650 emails, which we were very surprised, and also we had pretty good press, like you guys and other web-based shows showed up. We were very surprised, we were happy with the response of the people, mainly the kids. We would be standing in the booth, and parents couldn't see this because they were enjoying the convention as much as everyone else.
Yeah.
But the kids, we had a TV displaying the motion comic in loop over and over and over, and kids were drawn to it. They would be static just there. And kids from all ages, they were like in strollers, they were walking, they were just kids hanging around. I mean, it was definitely something that I was very surprised that we did hit the mark.
Even kids like me. I mean, that's actually what drew me to you guys' booth, the trailer and everything you guys had on there. You and Chris actually were, I think I told you this before, you guys were telling me about it, but I was only half listening because I was more into the trailer.
Yeah. I remember I was, you told me that, somebody, either Chris or I were talking about like, oh yeah, classic sci-fi, 1950s, and you were like, oh yeah. And you were like, just like glued to the TV watching, and I was like, oh, cool.
Yeah, because Chris is not, I think I mentioned it during the interview that we did. The music fits it perfectly. The visuals really draw you in. Now that I've seen the thing, and again, you guys can see it also on just go to the link section. It takes you right to it, and you already gave the password. It's WonderCon.
There it is again.
Might as well just take it off.
Yeah. It's only a million people listening, and who's gonna know?
Yeah, that's a good amount.
Yeah. So when you guys did all this stuff, what was it? The 1950s theme, I guess you want to call it, or feel? Was that what you were shooting for from the beginning? And did Chris's music and whatever he put in, did that make you go more to the 50s, or?
Well,
because you mentioned the 80s a second ago too.
Yeah, and the reason why I mentioned the 80s is because one of my all-time favorites, aside of Star Wars, of course, it's Back to the Future. That trilogy it's like marked my life. I mean, I remember I was Marty McFly. I was driving the DeLorean, and time traveling, and it wasn't until I came to rewrite Aliens and placed it in the 1950s. The reason why I loved Back to the Future so much was because it was placed in 1950s, and it was that classic America, the golden age of America that I was very drawn to, and we just picked up the theme, and we were like, you know what, we should just go with it and own it and make something really classic that would be timeless with time. And Chris did an excellent job, which I love him for, in capturing that essence in the music. I mean, we have all sorts of like little jazzy, snappy themes for Leon, and we have the more rock and roll, and it's like we have like all the ups and downs throughout that one and or two versions that we have of the Aliens Took My Girl soundtrack. So,
And actually, I was thinking of something that when you were talking about the 1950s and it's Americana and all that. Actually, when you think of the 50s, there's more of a feel, an innocence feel to that era, and that fits in perfectly with that innocence feel and aliens kidnapping your girl. So there's kind of a tie in there too. I'm speechless.
Can you repeat the
comment?
Forwarded.
I was saying, like I said, when you think of the 1950s, most people look back on that time as an innocent time for this country. You see it, like you mentioned, in the Back to the Future movies, like when Martin McFly goes back and the mom tells him, "Well, we never parked in cars," but you realize actually you did. This fits in perfectly the theme that you guys have, the aliens kidnapping, because back then, also in the 50s, is when sci-fi was still pretty new. I mean, you had War of the Worlds, the novel, not the movie that came out, the H.G. Wells novel. You had the Time Machine, all that stuff. But shows like the Twilight Zone, radio dramas, all that stuff, that really fired up people's imaginations. And so sci-fi this is the perfect time to put it into the 1950s.
Yeah, definitely. And the reason is because it's something so new, since the space age. It's fairly new. It's like 10 years after World War II, and the space race is just starting. So we just felt that it was like a very appropriate time to place this, just because that's what was happening back then in the 1950s. People were starting to be aware that there was something else other than planet Earth, and they started gazing upon the stars, and all this big imagination came through all these like great writers and great like stories. Like you mentioned, the Twilight Zone. I mean, half of the first season is about space travel. So
okay, so we're talking to Jesus Villareal, Chris Reiser, Christina Douk. They're all from Aliens Took My Girl. You guys go on the link section. It's all on there. You gave out the password already, so I don't know if you want to give it out again.
WonderCon, lowercase.
Yeah, like Christina said, might as well take off the thing now. Everybody knows now.
Everyone likes passwords, though.
So we met you guys at WonderCon. You're here now. Talk about the other behind the scenes team besides you guys.
Wow, there's I don't know. There's Keaton Tips. He's our
animation supervisor.
Animation supervisor. We have Andrew Chang. He's
the 3D modeling lead.
We have Tanny Duong. She is the character supervisor. Chris Fenolio is the character lead. Philip Wong is the art director. Stanislav Kochel. He's the hard surface 2D designer lead, and God, I hope I'm forgetting a lot of people.
And our producer, Rachel.
Yeah, our producer Rachel Agresta, the production manager, production coordinator Brittany. Javier Roche is one of our other 3D modelers. Joe Bates, another modeler. The Academy of Arts, really, we have to thank them for allowing us to basically do whatever we wanted under premises. I mean, they just allowed us to have a class to work on stuff. Chris Armstrong, Sean Featherstone, there are people from the Academy that helped us out throughout the whole adventure. They believed in us. I mean, they yelled at us a lot, but they believed in us.
In a good way.
For the most part, yeah.
You're also forgetting the most important people, the voice actors.
I want to thank Chris Reiser, Jesus Villareal. Chris Reiser, Jesus Villareal. Mainly,
one more credit in there.
We have one more credit or two. Rachel Agresta.
Yeah. My girlfriend actually played the main character, Oliver.
Yeah.
Laura Burrell. Yeah.
And we had working in a school environment was pretty difficult because people had, of course, other stuff to do, like other classes and other projects they were working on. And I mean, we had a great core team that we were breathing and eating Aliens Took My Girl 24/7, and that really helped inspire the rest of the team, and they really pulled through. And I mean, all I gotta say, I mean, I've been producing for the school for the past 3 years, and it's not because it's kind of like our personal project, but it is the first project that I've seen come across completely, and I just saw a good synergy between the people, and I'm really thankful for that, to experience that. I mean, I think it's every artist's and creator's dream to work with a group of people that would believe in the project and bend over backwards for it as well. And that's what we had. I mean, we became great friends just because of, we understood each other and we worked so well together. So we look forward for issue 2, definitely.
Now, this is going to take up all of your times, everybody involved also, of course, but like everything else, everything has an end. Like Star Wars, believe it or not, did end also with episode 3. I don't care about Clone Wars and that's not Star Wars. But
what? Star Wars ended?
Yeah, when you guys finally reach the end of the story, personally, what do you guys want to do? Whether it's another movie, motion comic, something like that. Let's start with Jesus. What do you want to do after this?
I would like to turn it in stereo. No, I'm no. I would like to move on to different stories. I mean, the Aliens universe is so vast. I mean, they do. This is a little bit of a spoiler, but they do travel through different eras, and they meet different characters, which by themselves are standalone. So I would definitely love to keep working with some of those characters or just different stories. I mean, I would even love to have a shot at, Superman trilogy. I don't know, just throwing it out there. Yeah. No, I mean, I did go to film school. My passion is to write stories. That's something that kind of like comes to me. I mean, the overall bulk of stories, ideas, and plans, payoffs, that sort of thing. I feel that it doesn't necessarily come natural to me, but it's something that I can work with pretty well, and I would just love to have a take on anything, really. So that's, I mean, don't want to ramble too much, but yeah, the next thing I would do is probably either take another one of my stories and flesh it out, or work on something that's already established.
Chris, how about you?
I definitely want to stay with this team as long as I can, so whatever I'm doing, I hope it involves the team that I'm present with now. Yeah. Yeah, they're a great team, and it's been fun every minute. I eventually want to write my own stories, my own films, animations, definitely storyboard for pretty much anything. I'll take anything.
And I would like to get my hands on that.
Have you done anything, Chris, before ATMG?
Yeah, I actually was a production assistant and story artist for a small animation studio, Jancy Studios, and we also made motion comics and short animations. And I mean, that's how I already had the experience on my belt to work on Aliens Took My Girl, so it was just another opportunity to heighten my skills in that field of video animation.
I feel like a parent here, but Christina, what do you want to do when you grow up?
Well, let's see. Well, originally, I am a 3D modeler, so I always want to keep making like new designs of like cars or creatures and stuff like that. We are trying to like work out our things for Aliens Took My Girl, and I know that we are gonna plan to do more and more issues, and we can branch off from the stories. It's a really long story, but I mean, I went to work on the side with them, and I've also like considered like there's video games and stuff that I really want to get into, and like I want to be a part of building things for video games, and even try to make a video game for Aliens Took My Girl, which is kind of a cool little design that we kind of thought of.
Hint, hint.
Yeah.
Well, we thought of it at random, and it looked really cute. It's a like side scroller type video game, but
yeah, with like chibi versions of the characters.
Yeah. Just cool thoughts, but I'm sure we'll be working together in the future.
I already have a story for the video game and a platform. No, we've talked about this.
Platforms, it should be.
Yeah.
Yes.
And, Christine, let me ask you actually, as a 3D modeler, something else 3D is this 3D craze in movies. Everything is either converted to or post-converted or filmed in 3D. Do you think that this is just a gimmick or it's actually here to stay?
3D, already like
stereoscopic.
The stereoscopic.
Yeah.
3D. Well, it looks like it's staying. There's
as long as tickets cost $20, yeah, it's staying.
Yeah, I think that's ridiculous, but I mean, it's cool. It's a cool idea. Yeah, it feels like you're more in the environment and stuff like that. I'm sure, like movies nowadays, it's gonna have to have 3D because that's like the new standard that they have. But I think it gives a cool effect. I think well, like, I think it's here to stay for a bit, but I'm sure that it's going to evolve into something else, like 4D. I don't know.
Holograms.
See, that would go-
Yeah, well, it'll be like Tony Stark and just move stuff around.
And then
I'm waiting for that day.
The tickets will be $30 probably.
We're still waiting for the flying
Yeah.
cars and all that stuff too. So I
Yeah.
guess we're waiting for a while for
Well,
that too.
like I mentioned earlier, being a Back to the Future fan, I am buying my hovercraft, my hoverboard.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're probably still waiting for the hoverboard, huh?
Yeah, I am.
It's close.
2015. So 3 more years.
You got to get the shoes too that go with it.
Of course.
The self-tying shoes.
Yeah, the blinking Nike thing.
And I think in China, I read it somewhere. I forget where, but I think China has the self-drying jackets already.
Oh,
They're just
wow.
not out here, but
That's cool.
they do have them.
That's cool. Yeah, I'm way more interested in the shoes than the board. Definitely.
Yeah. So again, Jesus Villareal, Chris Reiser, Christina Douk. They are from Aliens Took My Girl. The motion comics up on our link section. You guys, they gave you the passwords already. You can guys go on there and check it out. Follow them on Facebook, on Twitter. What is it again? You get
The Facebook is Facebook/AliensTook, and then the Twitter is Twitter/ATMG_crew.
There you go. That's just go to our link section. It's all on there. You can go to the main website. It's all on those little icons are there at the bottom. You can just follow them. What is it? Fandom, whatever you call it on Facebook now.
Friends, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, do
We're all
that.
friends.
Well, you guys know what to do. So thanks a lot. You guys are welcome back anytime. Let us know what's happening. Whether we'll have you here. We're planning a lot of events actually. I'm going to say it's way in the future, but not really. But in October, that's my month. That's my Christmas. Halloween is my Christmas. That's my favorite holiday. Planning the big, where's producer Damien? Planning the big, hint, looking at you, big Halloween party, which means we can probably have you guys here, bring the rest of the crew, and you guys can probably show it on the big screen here.
Yeah, we'll definitely be here. Halloween is also one of my favorite holidays, so definitely.
Yeah. Jesus, Chris, Christina, Aliens Took My Girl. Up in our link section, you guys can see it all there. Thanks for coming on. Like I said, you're welcome back anytime, and we wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you. It was a pleasure being here, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
And it was a pleasure having all of you there. Where's producer Damien? Thanks again to Radio GaGa. Chad Lambert is coming in July 18th. Theirs is out now. ATMG, Aliens Took My Girl. It's out now again on our link section. Radio GaGa won't be out until July 18th when that little movie from Christopher Nolan comes out. Also, next week, Chris, you're into sound. You ever heard of Ben Burt?
Yeah.
He'll be on the show next week because he has a little special event going on that we're going to be a part of. So we'll hear from Ben Burt on the show. And also going to introduce the first of many, the revolving door. We're going to put it in. We're going to install it next week. And we're going to have a bunch of Geek Girl co-hosts that you'll hear throughout the summer. The first one will be next week. Be here for that.
That's all for this week. Come back next week for a brand new episode, now heard exclusively on pknradio.com every Thursday at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern.
With replays at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
Follow The Geek Speak Show on Twitter.
At Geek Speak Show 1.
Like them on Facebook. Subscribe in iTunes. And listen to archived shows on YouTube.
Search for Geek Speak videos.
The Geek Speak Show is powered by Collider.com, RamaScreen.com, and GeekTyrant.com. This is now The Geek Speak Show.